Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whichever part of the world you're from. Thank you so much for joining in. I am Sudhi Haribhat. I am the Vice President, Partnerships and Alliances at Automation Edge. And you're here for the webinar titled Bridging the Gap Between Artificial Intelligence and Business Efficiency. Thank you so much for joining in. This session is brought to you by Automation Edge and Gavs Technologies. We are strategic partners working across the globe with various customers. Gavs Tech is a technology solutions company, and Automation Edge is a hyper automation product company. And this session is going to go on for about 60 minutes. So, before we go any further, I would just like to, convey some instructions to you. So first of all, I'm really grateful that you're here. At this evening or afternoon or morning, whichever part of the world you're in, you could have been doing so many other things, but yet you are here with us, and thank you so much for that. My one request is that try and join from a laptop or a PC. If you don't have that option, and if you can only join from a mobile phone, that's all right. But just that the experience from a laptop or a PC would be much better. Find a quiet place, whether it is in the office or at home, to attend this session. Be completely focused. The reason I say that is because you're going to get some amazing nuggets from this session, and that could just flip a switch, change something in you. So that's why I would like you to be completely focused. Like I said, this session is going to go on for 60 minutes, and we will overrun if you have a lot of questions. Talking of questions, one thing I will say is that we are going to answer all your questions. However, we'll take them at the end once the speakers are done with the standard agenda. But my promise to you is that all the questions will be covered. So once again, thank you so much for joining in. I'd like to begin with a story. Okay, a short story. This is from 3 years ago. This is with one of the largest insurance companies in India. And at that time, they had about 11,000 employees, most of them frontline sales. And business was roaring, but they had a big problem. They had a big problem of attrition. They had over 50% attrition, and this was practically a revolving door, and it caused huge headaches for the leadership. Of course, the HR team was in spinning all the time, so they went crazy. And so they tried to find out what's the reason, and one obvious indicator was that the employee satisfaction, the ESAT rating was at around 30% or so. In fact, I'm talking about Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance Corporation. This is one of the largest insurance companies in India, BALIC. And what they found is that the root cause of this problem was bad onboarding experience. Now, let me share something with you. For those of you who are familiar with HR, or maybe you have heard of this, that it is said that 90% of employees, in the first month after joining, they decide whether to stay back in the organization or not. Okay. So what Bajaj Alliance realized is that the root cause of their high attrition was a bad onboarding experience. And so they had to fix that. And Automation Edge and BALIC, we worked together, and we created a WhatsApp chatbot which interacted with every employee, every joinee, even before they got on board. So as soon as the person was selected, he or she would get a WhatsApp message saying, "Welcome, welcome to our company. You're selected, and these are the documents that you need to submit." And the 30 days before joining date, another message saying that we look forward to seeing you in a month's time. And meanwhile, watch this video about our organization. 3 days to go, another WhatsApp message, engagement, saying just 3 days to go. Really excited. This is the location. This is the office where you will have to come. One day before the joining, another message saying, tomorrow you will be here at this time. You will be meeting your manager at 11 a.m. You will be meeting the HR at 12:30 in the afternoon, so on and so forth. And on the day of joining, see you at 9 a.m. at this location, this is your seat, and your laptop is ready. Just have to go there and get started. So what happened was that this was a seamless experience for the employee, and they it was a highly enjoyable or highly welcoming experience for every person who joined. The result of this kind of onboarding experience, in fact, they also had messages going to the employee after 1 week, is everything good, or after even a month, saying, are you happy, is there anything that we can help you with? So what happened was that in 2 years time after they implemented this automated system, is their headcount went up by 23,000, went up to 23,000. So in 2 years they went from 11,000 to 23,000. However, their attrition rate dropped from 50% to less than 25%. The employee satisfaction rating went up from 30% to 93%. And the HR team size remained at 100, around 100, 110. So all other things being the same, the employee experience changed dramatically. Like I said, employee satisfaction rate from 30% to 93%. It was tremendous. It was simple. It could only be achieved by automation, because in the backend, what we had done was integrated their WhatsApp chatbot with their internal systems, the HRMS system, payroll system, ITSM system, financial systems, everything. So this is the magic of automation. And we are going to be talking a lot of such things. So how for us to bridge the gap between artificial intelligence and business efficiency, so we have two esteemed speakers with us, and they're from the United States, very knowledgeable, very articulate, and very engaging. So we have Stephen Jacobs. Stephen is based in Acworth, Georgia. He's the assistant vice president in Gavstech. He looks after the healthcare segment. And then we also have Ed Markowitz. He's vice president business development for Americas in Automation Edge. Welcome, Stephen and Ed. Stephen, how's it in Acworth? Is it raining?
It's warm, Sudi. How are you doing?
Is it? I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Hey, Ed, how's New York?
Sudi, all good.
Okay.
It's still here, thank God.
That's good. Yeah. Stephen, I'd like to introduce you. I know you have over 18 years of experience in the automation industry, and you've done a lot of work in workflow analysis, digital transformation, and AI-powered technologies. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everyone for joining today. So a little bit about myself. I run intelligent automation for GS Lab Gabs. And so we're a managed service provider helping companies with different technology goals like automation, cybersecurity, infrastructure, and other areas. And before that, I was actually on the software side of the house working at Pega, specifically in intelligent automation again, via the OpenSpan acquisition. So I've been in automation for a very long time. I've seen it both from a vendor side of the house and also an implementation side of the house. So very much looking forward to this conversation and talking about a lot of the experience and knowledge that I have on the subject.
Wonderful. Thanks, Stephen. And I understand you were a nerd and a thoroughbred introvert, and you've transformed into a talking machine. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's funny. When I graduated college, I was a computer science major, so I was a developer. And I always thought I was just going to sit in a cube and code all day, and I probably would have been happy doing that. But as soon as I graduated, I started working for a software company for OpenSpan. And very early on, and I say this with love and affection, I found out that they needed nerds that could stand in front of a crowd that had a little bit of charisma, that could pitch a product and help, drive the product out in the market. And so instead of, just sitting and working on
Yeah.
product, I moved into pre-sales and services. I was out, client facing and traveling, and it was a great experience, very organic. It kind of just naturally happened. So it's funny that, being a computer science guy, I never actually worked in a development department, and it's been, purely solutions consulting and solution architecting along the way. So life's always full of surprises.
Oh, yeah. Life is what happens when you're busy making plans. Eh? Wonderful.
That's
Thank you
right.
so much, and welcome, Stephen. Ed, you've spent 40 years in the IT industry, and in various disciplines in automation. Can you just give more insights about how your experience has been, the journey?
Yeah, sure. Thank you and appreciate it. And again, thanks everybody for joining the webinar. And we look forward to an incredible session. Basically started out of university in a IT department in operations, running a mainframe. And where, at that point, I was looking just to hone in on my IT skills that I learned at the university, realizing that not many of those skills were used. So I learned operations, and then I went into application programming. Open systems started coming around, and I became a systems programmer, believe it or not, leveraging VM on the mainframe. So VM has been around for many, many years. And then that led me into my next journey with Computer Associates Technologies, where I spent 22 years. And because of the knowledge I had hands-on, I built demo systems for the world for CA. That led me into more of a pre-sales, sales, VP of marketing, trying to make a difference in helping our customers. And then I transitioned from an ISV into a global system integrator with Cognizant. So I spent 6 years with Cognizant, really understanding why services are so very important, which really brings up the GAVs and AE strategic partnership. And we'll talk more about this from a people, process, and technology approach. So learned a lot there. And then I wound up in Automation Edge because I was looking to mix it up a bit and really get into that whole RPA and intelligent automation landscape. And that's where I am today, helping our customers
Wonderful. Yeah.
automate.
40 years, long time. That kind of gives away your age to it, and you hardly look old. So, yeah, is it pickleball?
I'm a young old man. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know, I know. Is it pickleball that's got you here?
That's it.
Uh,
Exactly. So now I also, on my leisure, right, focus on some
uh-huh.
hobbies, mainly sports, and recently picking up pickleball so I can stay young,
Oh,
forever young.
wonderful. You're doing good. Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sudhi.
Um,
Thanks.
to get started, let's warm up with a poll question. So, I'd like to understand from you, the audience, where are you in your automation journey at present? Team, I request you to bring up the poll? Yeah. So, where are you in your intelligent automation journey? Haven't started and don't currently have any plans to start. You have started but have plans to start in the next 6 months or so, or you have implemented a few projects and finally you have implemented many projects. Let's find out what your answer is. I'll give you another 10 seconds. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You can close the poll. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting insights. We have a spread all across. So 26% of you haven't started. 35% of you have just started in the nascent stage. 22% you've implemented a few projects, and 17% there are quite a few projects which you have implemented. So Stephen and Ed, we have a wide spread across across the spectrum. So yeah, let's get started. Stephen, first question to you. How is intelligent automation different from traditional automation? We talk a lot about automation, but if you can just separate the two of us, two for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So intelligent automation is really just the AI evolution of automation as a whole. And I think
Mhm.
when most people think about automation, they think about robotic process automation or RPA. And so with that, we've had RPA for many, many years, and in both forms, attended, unattended. It's had a lot of impact on many verticals. And so when looking at this and what it could do, it was always very rigid. It was very rules based in how it could work and what it could do. And then as these AI technologies have started coming onto the scene, it just really extended the possibilities around what automation could do. So, for example, taking machine learning,
Mhm.
whereas RPA would have to have something that was very rules-based and defined in the past and the outcomes. With machine learning, it could go through and take complex scenarios and give an outcome and say, well, instead of the RPA bot having to figure all of this out, we'll tell you what needs to be done, and it can just go and do it. So it really opened up, the different use cases that we could take and automate. Same thing when you start looking at document understanding or natural language processing, taking all those PDFs or documents that we have to work with and to be able to just consume that information and give the text or the information back to the bot to then process, to put into the applications or to transform or to do whatever automations that were set for it. It really opened up what was there. And then, going beyond that to the analytics, having process mining and task mining available so we could see, holistically, what does a process look across an enterprise, or what does a given desktop and a given user's day look like from a task mining standpoint. Adding all of these tools together has really extended what automation can do. And it's been very exciting to see this over the last 4 or 5 years. And, I'll be the first one to throw out the term. We knew that someone was going to say it today, Gen AI, right? What
Yes,
is Gen AI
absolutely.
doing, and how is this working? That's another tool that we're just starting to see that we can use to implement additional automations and change the way that we automate. And we'll talk a bit more about that later. But it's just using those AI tools to go, beyond what automation used to be. So that's intelligent automation, sometimes called hyper automation, but
Yes.
it's really just, robotic process
It changed. Yeah.
automation and
Yeah.
AI.
Okay. Those, so the terms can be used interchangeably, right?
Of course, yep.
And as I understand, intelligent automation, which is set to improve business efficiency and profitability by a huge amount. So, Ed, can you give a few examples of what you would have heard or seen from your extensive experience of how this has been done?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Sudhi. Thank you. So real, let me give you some real world examples, right? So we've worked with a large medical practice that distributes pain prescriptions
Mm-hmm.
once it's vetted. So this practice had a collaboration system where other facilities would be faxing in different information on patients that then had to get picked up. So that it was automated to a certain extent. Then we needed human intervention.
Mm-hmm.
So human capital is finite. You don't have a lot of resources
True.
sometimes.
Absolutely.
So
Mm-hmm.
what they decided to do was have a automation, intelligent automation, and again pick up those faxes,
Mm-hmm.
extract the 8 elements that needed to be applied to business rules. Once the extraction was occurred, apply the business rules. If the patient was in the EMR system, then they
Mm-hmm.
can update the record in the EMR system, and then it gets handed over for that prescription to get filled. If we did
Okay.
not find it, then we go into
Mm-hmm.
exceptional handling. So from an efficiency point of view,
Mm-hmm.
the 8 or 10 folks that were in this practice, when they had free time, they would go
Mm-hmm.
pick up the fax. This is a
Okay.
revenue-based system. So therefore,
Mm-hmm.
if those faxes were just sitting there, there's a potential lag in revenue recognition. So what we did was brought intelligent automation, picked up the faxes, updated the EMR, and now the 7 or 10 people in the office, they were
Mm-hmm.
carrying on the usual duties, which is taking care of the patients,
Yeah.
right? Which is the most important thing.
Yeah. So you get rid
Um,
of the mundane stuff, the mundane
yeah,
repetitive.
repetitive, mundane,
Yeah.
and again, it was very inefficient and
Mm-hmm.
it was a potential lag in revenue.
Yeah.
You had another large hospital that because of HIPAA, they were really only allowed to use VoIP. They couldn't bring in their phones, they couldn't, bring in their emails, etc. So they had to use VoIP. So when they got locked out of a system, the doctors, the practitioners, etc., they would
Mm-hmm.
have to call the help desk. And
Okay.
sometimes, depending, again, human capital is finite. So if
Yeah.
all the analysts are busy and they could be
Mm-hmm.
waiting on the phone
Mm-hmm.
from, let's say, up to 45 minutes.
Okay.
Unacceptable, bad patient experience, bad employee experience. So what we
Mm-hmm.
did was we intercepted the phone call. We
Mm-hmm.
validated who that individual were against a
Mm-hmm.
trusted source. Once we understand that this is the person who's looking for a password reset, Then we had a series of other questions, which application, etc. Go ahead and do a password reset. We brought that down from potentially 45 minutes to under 2 minutes. Therefore,
Huge. That's huge.
great,
And
great. Now the
is
doctors
this
and
was this also voluminous, high volume?
that's right. That's right. And the practitioners now can go care for the patient. So just a few examples on really the great value of efficiencies and profitability when you bring in intelligent automation.
Yeah, this is what technology can do, right? Completely transform things. Talking of technology, anything new that comes in, there is always the tripod perspective of people, processes, and technology, and what are the challenges related to these three elements. So here, I'd like to hear from both of you. Maybe Ed, you can go first on what are the challenges related to these three elements, that is, people, processes, and technology, one can expect with regard to intelligent automation?
Excellent question. So, I mean, it really comes down to the approach, right? If you just have, process reengineering and people standing on the side and technology that can accomplish many automations, and if they're siloed, it's not very effective. When
Mhm.
you bring in a people, process, and technology approach, really brings it all together to have a great outcome. People, you gotta train people. The digital assistant, right? What we call the bots, right? People call them the digital assistants as well. They're really to offload some of those mundane tasks from the people doing on a daily basis. I also look at intelligent automation as employee satisfaction, because if you are performing those redundant, error-prone, monotonous tasks,
Yes,
you're really not happy with the job with
true.
that role that you're doing today. So we're creating some happiness there.
Yeah.
From process point of view, most processes are informal, unfortunately. So when you
Mhm.
go through a process automation journey, now you're really kind of formalizing, you're documenting, you're creating those workflows so that the next person that comes along, they really understand that process. And in technology, from a automation edge point of view, and to your point, so they're mentioning hyper automation, right?
Mhm.
Intelligent automation, and to Stephen's point, it's not just RPA, right? With the automation edge platform, it brings you a very robust, rich function and feature set, right? You certainly have the RPA quadrant, but then you have integration platform as a service. Then you have cognitive ability built into the product.
Yes.
Some solutions out there, you have to go outside to a third
Mhm.
party. And then you have IT process automation. So it really is the technology and the platform that you select is
Mhm.
critical to the success of people process technology approach. And
Oh,
then also on the last note, you got to look at the financial aspect, the
oh yeah.
licensing aspect. So when you put some of the solutions side by side,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's a business decision, but business decisions are always driven by financial decisions.
Yes.
So hopefully we're painting a nice picture where it's affordable to do these
Mhm.
automations.
True. Yeah. Makes sense. Absolutely. And Stephen, what's your take between people, process, and technology? How would you look at the challenges with regards to intelligent automation?
Yeah, I think it always starts with the people, right? The most valuable resource for any company. You've got to
Mhm.
get those individuals involved. Oftentimes they have the tribal knowledge around how you're going to automate and what you have to automate. So you may have
Mhm.
documented processes, but when you get to the people, they know, oh, hey, when we get to this process, it may say this in the manual, but this is actually how we're doing it, for good or for bad, whether or not they should be doing it that way, that's how they're doing it. But you need to get down to those individuals to find out what you're going to be doing and how you're going to be doing it. But also, adoption can be a very big challenge for companies, and it starts with those
Mhm.
individuals. And if they're not brought in right away, if this is something that's brought to them towards the end, like, hey, we're giving you a new system in 2 weeks and we're going to train you up and we're going to get you ready, they can be scared. We're all human. No one likes change, right?
Yes.
But if you make them part of the process the whole way and let them
Mhm.
know, as Ed was talking about, we're going to get rid of some of these redundant tasks that you hate and we're going to make your lives better, then, they'll say, okay, well, this is great. Let's get through this. Let's build this out and let's really make this work. And so then you can start, from that foundation and really drive success. But I think that is a key point of starting with your people.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Change management, very sensitive. You can't
Mhm.
just shove it down people's throats. Very true, Stephen. Ed, one question for you is, this is about the individual, the people involved. It is all well and nice to be doing intelligent automation, but the question remains, what is in it for me? And of course, for the organization as well. So, can you just talk about what value does intelligent automation provide to the individual and also extend it to the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think one of the important aspects of intelligent automation is really freeing up the human, right? Because again,
Mhm.
to Stephen's point, human capital, it doesn't come cheap and it's valuable.
Mhm.
So to keep an employee happy, right? If they're coming to work every day and doing that same task, billing, for example, a lot of attrition in billing because
Mhm.
of the fact that they're really not happy, right? So when you automate a process that frees up a human to do
Mhm.
more valuable work, then
Mhm.
they can move their professional careers. And that's not taken in any light. But what has to happen is that the human has to be very confident and be able to sit right next to their digital assistant. And
Yes.
sometimes the way I like to talk about it is, as you're going through a process, right, that has many, many steps within a given process, what are those steps that you can give your colleague, this digital assistant, so that you can get freed up to do more analytical work, bring
Mhm.
more value to the organization? So you create operational efficiencies, you create employee satisfaction, and everybody wins at that point.
Yes, life becomes so much more exciting if you can get the mundane stuff, the boring stuff done by someone else, and you can, it tests your intelligence. Life, but things get interesting, and if you're made to do the same boring stuff over and over
Mhm.
again, it's kind of disrespecting the intelligence. So yeah,
Yeah,
very
yeah. I
true.
mean, let's face it, there are some processes that shouldn't
Mhm.
be done by humans, that are ripe
Yes.
for robotic processing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very true, Ed. Stephen, you touched upon the financial aspect, which is very important for any automation initiative. And like any good businessman or decision maker would ask, business person or decision maker would ask, what is the ROI for automation? It's fine to do it. It sounds exciting. You guys make it sound, amazing, but it has to make business sense, right? So, how does one calculate the ROI for it?
Of course. And so when you start looking at what does the ROI look like and what can you expect, it really
Mhm.
comes down to the style of automation that you're going to be leveraging. So whenever you're thinking about intelligent automation, it still has both unattended and attended automation. And with attended automation, again, that's where it's on someone's system, on their desktop with them, being very dynamic. Hey, when I open up this web page, take all of these details from this Excel spreadsheet and automatically populate it for me. Versus when I have this Excel spreadsheet and I put it on the share, send it off to a virtual machine that's sitting on a server and do processing. So that's unattended. So you have both styles. So it
Mhm.
really comes down to, is there a human touch point that's involved, whether or not you can completely use unattended automation to automate that process, or if it still needs to be attended. And with unattended automation, it gets close to that 100% mark. Not quite, right? You're always going to have exceptions. You're always going to have fallouts to where individuals need to go back and to check things, but it gets close to 100%. Whereas with attended automation, generally as a benchmark, you can save around 20%, give or take, of a given process to take into have an uplift. And so, we talked about, volume earlier, right? Low
Mhm.
complexity, high volume. Those are the great metrics for a good automation use case. So, if you've got, a lot of individuals performing the same kind of tasks on a daily basis,
Mhm.
that might be where you want to take a look. And then, you know, based on how many individuals are performing that task and how often they perform it, it just becomes a math problem at that point, right?
Yes.
To calculate the ROI. How many FTEs are doing this? How many times per day? How long does the process take on a manual standpoint? What is it
Mhm.
going to look like after we automate it? And you can actually lay out a roadmap for your ROI on an automation project, and you can work to that, right? So you don't get
Okay.
surprised at the end to say, well, we built automation A, and we're really, not seeing the savings that we thought that we were going to get. Because if you calculate them beforehand, you can work to that to know, well, did we hit the mark? Did we exceed the mark? Were we under that? And if we were, why, right? There should be, some issue that leads you to that point where you won't be surprised, but you can find out, what's happening. So with automation, 100% for unattended or close to, and around 20% for attended, and just work to that number, and you'll
Is it?
make sure that you're hitting the numbers that you expect.
I think that's very specific. That really helps understand the difference in terms of ROI for unattended attended. Can you give an example of an unattended robot and also or attended automation?
Of course. So for unattended, patient onboarding. So if you're receiving documentation, if you have information that you're receiving, via an email, a spreadsheet, a PDF document, you've got all of these resources that are coming in as you're getting a new patient into your system. Someone has to go through that and say, all right, well, for this PDF, let me grab these 8 pieces of data, and then I'm going to go over here for this email. Oh, okay, this is where their address is, and this is where they confirmed this particular phone number for me. So you have to have an individual or a bot go through all of those different items to collect the information to then put into your source system. So a great unattended bot is patient onboarding, to where it can just go out, grab those items, retrieve the data, and input it directly into your source system, like, Epic or whatever your EHR or EMR would be.
Yeah. So an unattended robot doesn't require any manual intervention whatsoever.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Time for a poll question. In the first poll, we understand that we have a good mix of people. So, for those of you who have already gotten onto the automation bandwagon, so here's a poll question. Team, can you bring it up? So, what benefits have you observed from implementing automation so far? For those of you who haven't, maybe you can guess what you would like it to be. Yeah. So that's there on the screen for you. What benefits have you observed from implementing automation? The options: increased efficiency and productivity, cost reduction, improved patient care, enhanced data security, and employee satisfaction. So uh, pick your choice. I'll give you another 10 seconds to do so. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yeah. Team, can you bring up the results? Wow. This time there is no confusion or no distribution. It's absolutely clear. 88% or almost all of you say that increased efficiency and productivity is what you are looking for. A few of you, 4% of you are looking for improved patient care, and about 8% of you enhanced data accuracy. So yes, interesting poll results, Ed and Stephen. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we need to make sure that we're polling the employees there to see if, they're finding improvement with these processes as well. If your automations aren't generating, if they're not increasing employee satisfaction, we certainly need to change that and revamp them to where they are.
Yes, I agree with you completely. And Ed, you have been talking, you have been giving some amazing examples from the healthcare industry, healthcare space. So, overall, can you tell us what the automation scene is in the healthcare space? In America specifically, you can.
Yeah. So, in general, healthcare has been very much laggards, if you will, on the technology side. All right. So there's a lot of catch up going on right now. And intelligent automation is in vogue, right? Because they're struggling, right? Especially with COVID and attrition and things in this nature. So, and there's all aspects of it. So just the intake process on how do you onboard a new patient? How do you make it seamless? How do you get the EMR updated in an expeditious fashion? Traditionally, it's a manual process, right? It could be populated into a tablet. You walk into a doctor's office, hospital, they give you a tablet, you fill it out. If there's no intelligent automation behind it, then it becomes a manual process. So you can automate a lot of these different processes. And especially from a compliance point of view and governance point of view, intelligent automation can really add tremendous value to being compliant, right? And when I say compliant, there's many different aspects of compliance. First of all, everything that digital worker does is logged and audited. So when auditors come in, it's very easy to run that report, create the audit log, and then show it to those auditors, right? The other thing is really sometimes if you're not compliant with, let's say, Medicare, Medicaid, right? Other, and payers, if you will, then the providers are providing the service, but it's hard for them to get paid for that services. So we have intelligent automation. An example would be electronic visitor verification. So when a caregiver goes into a home for post-acute care, right? That EMR system has to be updated in order to submit a claim into Medicare and Medicaid payees, et cetera. What the EVV bot creates a communication between the agency and the caregiver. So they know real time, when did they arrive? Out of the 12 tasks that they were supposed to perform to the patient, which did they do? Which didn't they do? When did they leave? The other challenging aspect also is notes, because these payers, they want to see notes. They want to see what was captured at the patient level. So caregivers go from one house to another house to another house. So we've created these, what we call a care flow, where you can be simply in your car, open up the app on your cell phone, on your tablet, and start dictating. So when you get back to the office, you can look at those notes, modify those notes, and then append them to the EMR system. So tremendous value, many different ways. And one other quick example, and we're seeing this in a big way, is how do we automate that whole referral process? Because there's, when they come out of a facility, right? They need some help when they get back home, whether they go to rehab, go back home, etc. We can expedite that whole referral process because you have to have insurance eligibility, you have to have all of the details, all the codes. We have actually some automation that will generate the codes, right? So there's a lot of way on that whole end-to-end life cycle for referral management for these organizations, and we've done an incredible job in actually automating that process that is really catching on in the healthcare industry.
And the way you described it seems so simple and intuitive. In many cases, technologies can overwhelm people who are not necessarily technologists. Say, for example, caregivers. But I believe in the examples that you mentioned, it actually makes life easier. Maybe they don't have to. Maybe they have to do less of technology and still get more efficient and a lot more done.
That's right. And when Stephen mentioned language, natural language processing, natural language understanding, and it's omni-channel. We could text them, we can call them, multi-language support. So that, we've kind of displaced the barriers to have a successful dialogue with the agency and the caregiver. And there's also some things that the patient can do. We have a whole patient dialogue with the agency because we also want to hear from these agencies want to hear from the patients. So we've created many, many care flows. And that's the beauty of also automation. Let's call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of these processes are kind of identical across different healthcare providers. So now all we need to do is come in and customize 20% to fit within your environment and within your configuration. So we can expedite these intelligent automations.
Absolutely. Thanks for that insight, Ed. Stephen, I have a question for you, which is very in tune with the times, the flavor of the season, if you like, which is about Gen AI. Now, how does we talk of Gen AI, and then we are speaking about intelligent automation. How do the two go together hand in hand? How do they tango? Can you just throw some light on Gen AI vis-a-vis intelligent automation?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's just the latest tool, the latest AI tool in the toolkit for intelligent automation, right? And it's funny, Ed was honest enough earlier to age himself a little bit. I'm going to do so now. Going back nearly 20 years ago, all automation was happening right at the end user level. It was automation where it was interacting with them on the desktop, and it was, performing those actions for them. And then it kind of changed to, well, we're drifting more towards a lot of unattended automation, over the next, probably well, the last 10 years for sure. More
Mhm.
processes have been, driven to unattended automation, and that's where the focus has been. I
Yes.
think Gen AI could really start driving some of this back towards the end users and putting it in their hands and what we can do. For example, and I'll give an Automation Edge example here. One of the products and services that you guys provide is the ability to have I'll call it a dynamic or a living knowledge base, to where you can have a repository of documents, to where you can drop a document into a file share, and then have the system use a large language model to process that document, and then the individual can just directly ask it questions through
Yes.
natural language understanding. It could say, what services are covered under my policy, or what is my deductible for the year, or even more generically, what is my deductible? And it may come back and give you the answer for your yearly deductible, for your office visit deductible. It can go through and it can process that information and give you the answers, versus having a static knowledge base, whether it's on paper or a website that IT is having to manage. I can have my own personalized knowledge base to say, hey, here are the 10 documents that I care about. I'm going to push these into the share, have it refactor based on these, and then it can spit out answers to me directly. That is a pure Gen AI use case that is putting the power right back at the hands of the individuals. And I think this is going to be a very big game changer over the next few years, making sure that, all of that information is readily accessible, and it's really going to change how people do work.
Yeah, and I'm sure it would be very much relevant in the healthcare industry, healthcare space as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Can you think
absolutely.
of any example where Gen AI with intelligent automation can be applied in the healthcare space?
Well, I think the example that I just gave was a good one, and it can directly be used inside of the healthcare space, right? So, if you want to get this to your internal employees to have them
Mhm.
work against those knowledge bases, that's one thing. But you can also, have this external facing to your clients as well, to where they have their documents available to them that they can upload to that system and spit out answers as well. So that way, as opposed to me having to, hit a chat channel or call in to a provider, or I'm sorry, to a payer to see what coverages I have and what's available. I can just go
Mhm.
to the website that's been posted for me, and I can just directly ask it questions, or maybe I can shoot it a text or an email and it spits out the same results. But it'll get me to those answers versus me having to comb through all of the documents that are being sent out. But those are directly leveraged by the healthcare industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I said that we'll take questions at the end, but there's one right on cue regarding Gen AI. So, is it okay if I take it now, Stephen? This one's for you.
Of course.
Okay, the question. Let me read it out for you. Could you help to understand the path using Gen AI to develop any solution, best base model of Gen AI, or other points to be considered? So basically,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, so I won't say which one is the best Gen AI model. They all have their pros and cons, whether you're looking at, what's being provided by Google or Meta, and the large language models they have. Some
Mhm.
of it's based on performance, some of it's based on cost. Really, that comes down to, what you're looking for and what you're trying to do. And the path to using Gen AI really, and we're still all trying to figure this out, right? This is a technology that's really hit the scene in the last year and a half. And so
Mhm.
we're just really scraping at the capabilities that are there. We're all, and this is the very honest answer, is we're all still trying to understand completely where it's going to be going. But just getting to understand that, it's going to open up what you can do, and what you can get to your customers as well. I
Mhm.
think that's a big point. As an example, in working with a payer not long ago, one of the pilots, or the demos that we built, was around predictive modeling and Gen AI, to where it could go through and do forecasting for weather, to look for weather patterns that are known to produce flu-like symptoms, or to have a flu outbreak. And then
Uh-huh.
instead of sending out a generic email to all of their members, it could tailor specific emails to the members using a Gen AI engine to say, hey, Ed, hope everything's going okay down in Orlando. We see that the storms are coming in. Make sure to be safe during hurricane season. It
Yes.
looks like it's going to be really cold next week, and it was hot and wet last week. Make sure you're getting your fluids. And if you have to get a flu shot, there's a clinic here on, First Street that's 4.4 miles away from you where you can go in and work through that. So, those kinds of use cases to really, up the personal touch are
Mm-hmm.
some of the easy hits and easy wins that we're going to be seeing over the next few years because, with generative AI, it's around having that information and, what do you do with it from there? So I think that's, the kinds of use cases in the past that we're going to be taking.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes complete sense. And for my next question, I'm going to stick with you, Stephen. Gen AI is very bohemian, the in thing currently. But the next question is more sensitive. So it's all great that we are talking about intelligent automation, especially in the healthcare space. But we also know the sensitivities around it. So, what are some ethical considerations that one has to keep in mind with respect to intelligent automation in healthcare space?
Yeah, so we're getting to the big questions now. Yeah, so when we start looking at healthcare specifically, right? I think Ed made a comment earlier that they're always a little late to the party when it comes to new technology. It's the last industry because everything has to be vetted, everything has to be nailed down, and it's for a good cause, right? There's a lot of personal information. There's a lot of PII, PHI, all of that has to be, maintained and has to be secure. And so as we start looking at leveraging these large language models, sometimes you can have, in-house implementations. Other times you're going to be sending that information out over a secure channel, but you're still sending it externally to a system to be processed. So I think that's probably going to be the first hurdle that we have to get over in healthcare is where is this going to live and how are we going to leverage it? And then based on that, I think it's really going to open up a lot of doors once we have the ability and the green light to use it. But there's going to be a lot of discussions as hospitals and clinics are coming on board to this. Know that your IT is going to have many, many conversations with you about what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. And so making sure that we've got that secure connection back to wherever that large language model is probably going to be the first piece because we've got to be really careful with the information that we're processing. So that's the first, real hurdle and making sure that we're using the information in a safe manner.
Yeah, very important aspect of intelligent automation.
Mhm.
Time for our final poll question. Okay, so this is for the audience. The question is, how do you measure the success of your automation initiatives? You can, team, can you please bring it up? Yeah. So there are different ways you could do it. One is ROI and cost savings, efficiency improvements, patient satisfaction, employee feedback, or finally compliance and regulatory standards. So pick your choice. I'm giving you 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yeah. Team, you can close the poll. Let's see what the results are. Okay. Yeah, expectedly, more than half of us think that it should be ROI and cost savings. That is, 53%, and similarly, efficiency improvement, almost the same. Then patient satisfaction. Next is employee feedback, which is 21%, and finally, compliance and regulatory standards. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay. Ed, I have one final question for you before we go to the audience. Is where does one start with the intelligence or intelligent automation journey? Now that we know a lot of things about it and how important and how great and how useful it is, but where does one start? That is what I'd like to know from you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good question. And a lot of organizations wrestle with that, right? So, my view is like any other initiative or project, right? What are your goals? Why are you embarking down intelligent automation? make sure you have alignment across the organization, especially at the executive level. Because in order for adoption to really occur at the right pace, you really have to have the executives on board because they have to sponsor it and they got to finance it, right? Then
Okay.
I would say you would have two buckets, right? One are your short-term goals and one of your long-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that you don't want to do is take the boil the ocean approach, right? And to Stephen's comments before adoption, if you start small,
Mm-hmm.
focused, and get some quick wins,
Mm-hmm.
this is the way you kind of achieve adoption. You get department heads excited about what intelligent automation can bring. And then all of a sudden, you have many processes that are going to be coming to
Mm-hmm.
whoever owns it, right? So a lot of organizations, if they're large enough, they'll have an intelligent automation COE so that they can apply governance on how to roll out automations. Very important. And so start small, get some quick wins, and listen, it's about showing value. So, you know, and that last poll, driving, saving costs, efficiencies, et cetera. Sometimes we always look for cost savings and reduction of costs, right? But they could be hard costs or they could be soft costs. So you really have to look at both because they're both valuable, right? Because operational efficiencies, the corner office, especially the COO,
Mm-hmm.
loves operational
Mm-hmm.
efficiencies, and that's what IA brings to a discipline and to a
Okay.
sector. So have your goals in line, short-term goals, long-term goals. Also get to understand, I think, you know, one of the things when you're starting an IA journey, understand the terminology, look at the
Mm-hmm.
glossaries, because you're going to have a lot of techno babble when you get in front of these type of folks, right? So understand the terminology, and that's going to help you get closer to really what intelligent automation will bring to you in AI and ML and NLP and all of these great
One certainly has to do that, yes. And I like the point that you made about executive buying because this is a strategic initiative. You can't just sneak it into the environment. It has to come from the top. You need blessings from there. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And then you also got to find that champion. Who's that influencer? Who's
Yes.
really going to take this and they look at it as a career motivation, right? I'm going to drive intelligent automation in for my organization. And if you're part of that team, you're going to have great success, longevity with the organization you're at today and
Mhm.
beyond.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's very good insight, Ed.
Sure.
There
And
are
can
a
I
few.
just add to that real quick?
Absolutely, go
Please.
for it, Steve.
And so Ed, I love what you were saying about, the hard savings versus the soft savings, sometimes, quantitative versus qualitative. Oftentimes, I like to refer to those two, green dollars and yellow dollars, right? Everybody wants the green dollars, the cost savings, the efficiency gains. But when it looks at, patient, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, those yellow dollars, those are very important too. Like projects are justified based on green dollars. But the yellow dollars can also drive huge value, especially in healthcare, right?
Very
Employee
true.
burnout is a real issue. It's a real problem. And that's not a green dollar savings, that's a yellow dollar
Absolutely.
savings.
Yeah.
But with intelligent automation, you can help prevent that. You're keeping your employees happy, and employee retention goes up, productivity goes up naturally outside of your automations as well, because everybody's
Mhm.
in a better place. So as you go through this, we almost always certainly have to justify these projects with those hard savings, but keep in mind that those soft savings are very, very important as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, agree with you. We have audience, we have limited time and we have a few audience questions. Stephen, I'll let you take the first one, which is how do you see the automation market evolving in the next 5 years?
Great question.
I'm
So
glad
when I start,
I've not been asked that question. I don't know how it will evolve in the next 5 months.
yeah, it's tough to
That's
predict,
why you're
right?
the expert.
Especially
Yeah.
with with an area where the technology is changing so quickly. But I think what
Uh-huh.
we're going to be seeing is, a few things. One, like I was talking about before, I think Gen AI is really going to open up what we can drive back to the hands of the end user. But
Mhm.
also kind of on the other end of that spectrum, I think companies are going to start designing applications and processes differently. oftentimes probably taking a digital worker first approach to where you can actually build an application and a process to say, we're going to automate this from the start. We're going to have a bot or a service that's going to handle this. And this is the way that we're going to do the work versus, well, let's send the work to the individual and then we'll automate it after the fact. A lot of processes are going to be built with automation as the primary implementation tool from the start. So I think digital worker first over the next few years could be very big.
It's just going to grow
Yes.
exponentially. Okay. And, what are the key benefits? So this is the next question. What are the key benefits of implementing intelligent automation for small and medium-sized enterprises? Do you want me to read that again? What are the key
Yeah,
benefits
no,
of
no, I got it.
implementing? Yeah,
I'm good.
go for
No, I
it.
got it. But thank you. Um, it's incredible value when you start bringing in intelligent automation, the digital assistants to a small to medium enterprise. Number one, human capital, right? Very, very expensive. And, you know, small companies struggle with that.
Yes.
The digital assistant is about 30% of what an FTE would cost you. So you have tremendous savings by bringing in a digital assistant to, again, not displace an FTE, but to sit by that FTE. And so, and then again, they're just short of people to carry out these processes. So I'm working with one agency where they're really struggling when they dispatch a caregiver. And, again, you have to update that EMR system so that they can get paid. And they're so busy, they don't put in the clock in, they don't, update the systems when they arrive, when they leave. So now you have these small organizations with limited resources chasing people, texting, phone calls, etc. Why not let the digital assistant do that?
Yes.
Let that FTE
Mhm.
do the onboarding, do the claims processing, right? So it really extends
That's a huge
the
monkey off the back. Yeah.
absolutely because they can't get to certain processes, right? They have initiatives that they want to move forward to their companies can grow, but yet they're kind of strapped because of lack of human capital. To bring in a digital assistant is very efficient,
Yes.
um, financially appealing,
Mhm.
and really change the whole aspect of patient experience,
Yeah.
right?
Complete
And
sense. Yeah.
these days, if a patient doesn't have experience working with a healthcare provider, there's a lot of choices. So you really want to have patient retention,
Yes.
and again have that digital worker get to it right away.
Yeah. You may be a
So
small or medium size, but you ought to give the best experience to your patient and also the caregiver.
that's right. A small to medium enterprise wants a patient to think that they're very large from a human capital point of view. So when you have, the digital assistant making a phone call, hey, how was the service? Following up on surveys, right? Chasing the caregivers to update their notes, put in their clock and time so that the agency can get paid when they submit the claim. A lot
Absolutely.
of different aspects
Yeah.
on a small to medium
Makes
enterprise.
sense. Yeah. We have time for one last question. Stephen, can you take this? Let me read it out for you. How do you approach integrating automation with existing legacy systems? Now, I'm assuming this is for organizations that have been around for a long time, if they have legacy systems.
Of course, of course. Yeah. So with legacy systems, that's what automation is intended for. So
Mhm.
if you've got, cutting edge technologies, most of them are going to be service enabled or have controls that are available to directly input automation inside of them. Whereas these legacy systems are closed off, they don't have those services. And so that's where you really need intelligent automations. When you start looking at your thick client applications, when you start looking at your green screen systems, those old archaic systems that are still around that we still
Oh,
see all
yeah,
the
very
time,
much. Yeah.
that's where we can take and we can start leveraging intelligent automation to take and to consume the data or to input the data back into those systems. When you're looking at thin client applications or service enabled applications, you have a little more flexibility. But with
Mhm.
those closed off legacy systems, that's really where you should start with intelligent automation because that's where you're going to have the least capabilities in house.
Yeah. And many low hanging fruits, probably.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We are almost out of time, Stephen and Ed. Before I let you guys go, any parting words, any final comments? Stephen, you go first.
Yeah, so just as you start on your intelligent automation journeys, it's always important to look at the processes. You're going to have a lot of people come to you with a lot of different use cases to say, hey, let's automate this, let's automate this. Remember, high volume, low complexity, those are going to give you the best results. They're going to be the fastest bots to build. They're going to be the quickest to get out into production, and they're going to yield the highest results. So as you go through and start looking at this, just start measuring out what the ROI would be, list them out. Hey, here's 20 use cases. Let's add priority to these and then build that way. And that'll really help drive success.
Thanks, Stephen. Ed, final comments from you?
No, I would, yes. I would say that really step back, have conversations inside your organization, try to get a feel of, who's pro intelligent automation, who's not. Align yourself with the folks that are pro, let them be a hero, right? And try to help, one of the business units inside the organization to identify which is to Stephen's point, what's the low-lying fruit? Where can we get a quick win? Where can we get adoption? Where can we get the organization excited about taking on IA, right? It will increase competitiveness. It will increase profitability. And as we've seen across the board, operational efficiencies, 100% will gain.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, there's one final question from Geeta. I know we are going over time, but I'd just like to take this if you don't mind. With all this fancy AI, Gen AI, where will all the companies who are using the traditional tools like Selenium and paid? Okay, I'm just struggling to read this. Yeah, and paid tools like SmartBear and Tosca would head to. Will the companies using the traditional tools be classified as laid-back technologies? What do you think, Stephen?
I don't think it'll necessarily be considered laid back technologies. This is going to be a transition, right? So it's not, hey, we're turning on Gen AI and we're all using that, and if you're not using it, you're falling behind. It's something that's going to happen over the next several months, years. It's going to be a process. So if you're currently using, Selenium or SmartBear, there's still value to be had by those products. Keep using those, keep using your current implementations. But once you start looking at new implementations and new systems that you're going to be building out, maybe that's where you make the change and start using a different technology. The old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, if something's working, keep using it. But as you start going and shifting to new processes, check to see what technology is there. But don't think you're falling behind if you're not using it right now. You still have time to transition to it.
It needn't be a zero-sum game. You can do the transition gradually. Yeah, absolutely. Great thoughts, Stephen. To conclude, we really are out of time. And audience, if you have more questions, I'm really sorry. I know between Ed and Stephen, what they have done is given us deep insights and lit a spark, and this is going to this is going to result in a lot of questions. So a request is, please send in your questions by email, and I promise you we will definitely answer them for you. Ed and Stephen, it was great conversing with you. I know we've been in touch for a few weeks, and each one of our conversations have been very enlightening, and today was truly special. Thank you so much for that. And on behalf of the audience, I'm going to make a promise that for you is that we will want you back. We will definitely want to hear more from you, because this is highly enlightening and enriching experience for us. Audience, the email ID for more questions is given in the chat box. Please make a note and send in your questions, and we will get Ed and Stephen to answer them for you. On that note, thank you very much, Ed, Stephen, everyone who's been here right till the end. Thank you, the organizing team from Automation Edge and Gavstech. Let's have more such enlightening sessions. And yeah, goodbye, good night, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are from. Thank you. Cheers.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks.